So this morning, I got up and I was watching a video about why dating in 2020 is so messed up. And what was interesting, and I got to put my phone. What was interesting about this person is that she claimed that the reason why dating is so messed up today is partially birth control, and because of birth control, women can become hoes. That was her term that she used. And that because of also social media, that women overvalue themselves because they get likes by what's known as the Chad and Tyrones out in the world. And and that's the problem with dating today is women overvalue themselves. They basically slept around and they don't appreciate and value men. So now I recognize that this is a younger demographic, which is quite a bit different than the demographic that I speak to. And yet I wanted to explore this because what I'm noticing is a significant shift in human behavior that's centered around what I believe is self-centric. And while I want to talk, and I also want to talk about love bombers and narcissists and why people might become more self-centric in the world, that it might appear to be that way, because I do believe human beings haven't evolved substantially to some degree, although cultures have changed, socializations have changed. But I think human beings within themselves don't change too much. And while I do believe that we are a byproduct of our environment, and what I mean to say is we are a byproduct of our childhood. So whatever happened in our childhood bleeds over into how we turn out as adults. It becomes part of our personality. And what I mean to say is, when we look at clinical issues like sociopaths and narcissists and such like that, I do believe that when you go back to the root of where this has occurred, you can see that there's been significant childhood wounds and traumas. And I think of, like, I was watching the Netflix miniseries about Jeffrey Dahmer. And certainly if this is valid, then his childhood was rather messed up. And when you look at cult leaders and such who tend to be narcissists, their childhood is messed up. But for the most part, the average human being isn't overly messed up. I mean, I do believe that most of us carry some significant dysfunctionality. And because of that, I'm noticing that from a dating, mating, and relating realm, human beings operate from a self-centric place. And men, okay, so what's interesting also is that women point the finger at men and men point the finger at women instead of looking inward within themselves and say, what could be causing my behavior? And am I operating from a self-centric place? Well, I think from a dating perspective, it certainly is true, because when you go on a first date, are you actually really caring about the other person? Do you care about their needs? I mean, are you going, hey, as a lady, are you going, I'd like to pick up the tab for you? Or is it what you expect from another person? That might be from a woman's point of view. From a man's point of view is, what can I get from this woman? Can I get sex from this woman? And so men, oftentimes, because they're driven from a biological perspective, we might do what's called love bombing. Now, love bombing is oftentimes associated with narcissistic behavior, and yet I'd like to think I'm not a narcissist, and yet when I look at if you go down, if I Googled narcissist right now and the traits, I certainly have a number of those traits. I'd like to also think I'm empathetic, and I can apologize when I genuinely believe I've done something wrong, versus I apologize because I'm trying to, make peace, so to speak. I'd like to take, what I mean to say is, a person who is a narcissist rarely takes ownership of their behavior. Okay, so, and I'm guilty of love bombing. What I mean to say is, I've certainly felt lust or limerence with a woman. And if you're not familiar with, do me a favor, Google lust, Google limerence. Limerence means extreme infatuation. And when I've experienced extreme infatuation, oh my God, I promised the world. I mean, oh my God, you're so the most amazing woman on the planet. I could see us getting married and I could see us living happily ever after. And I've known this person for an hour. and ladies, let's face it, while that might be called love bombing because that's the term today, I think there's a big difference between people who are genuinely enthusiastic and get ahead of themselves versus there's a manipulative thing going on. This is why I'm such a big proponent of operating from a place of rather than jumping into bed together, because when I was in that lust or limerence phase, I was driven by the chemical biological of I wanted to have sex with this person. And yet I barely knew this person to know if we were a good fit for one another. This is why I adopted what's called as my dating vows. And if you, by the way, there's a description of the dating vows in the link below. Here's a copy of it, but there's a description. And I say, before you get fit, well, first off, if you've ever heard the phrase, women are the gatekeepers of sex and men are the gatekeepers of commitment. So what the dating vow is an agreement between the two of you is before, and from a woman's point of view, I'm saying before you genuinely give your heart to a man, because I'm not here to tell you when to have sex, but I certainly do believe that once we're physically intimate with someone, we can bond with them, is before you get, really too deep down the rabbit hole with a guy, here's an agreement you make with each other. I agree to explore the process of getting to know you with the intent to declare something serious in the next 3 to 6 months. Okay. I agree to be monogamous sexually while we're having regular sex together. I agree to not actively seek to meet and date others while we're in the process of dating one another, including taking down our dating profiles. I agree to speak up if this isn't working for me versus pulling back, ghosting, or disappearing or ignoring you, like my previous video. And I agree to invest regular time in the process of getting to know you, which looks like this. And for me, it was social activities, hobbies, mutual interests, spending time with family and friends, traveling together, teamwork, building skills, both in our personal and our professional life, intimacy, both physical and emotional intimacy, which leads to either moving in together or getting married. Now, I'm not saying, and by the way, 90% of guys will most likely bail on this, okay? Because they're not very serious about the process. And if you have one that goes, wow, that's pretty amazing, which I have so many of my clients telling me once they've heard, once they've adopted this, the good guys go, wow, I like this. Now, most guys will reject it. And certainly self-centric people don't like to be, don't like to go outside of their box. It's at least a start. And so I'm here to offer you this advice with regards to, now we'll talk about narcissism, well, with regards to self-centric people, but I want to talk about narcissism for a moment. I shared a moment ago, I probably check off some of the boxes. I sometimes have a grandiose, belief about myself. And believe me, I'll get humbled very quickly when I go too far off into my ego. Can I sometimes get defensive when I feel like I'm being challenged? Absolutely. Do I gaslight the person? No. I mean, this is the thing about gaslighting. Sometimes when you have a different point of view and you see it differently, you express that. That's not gaslighting. I mean, and yet there are people who have sophisticated defense mechanisms that can literally turn things around and make you the problem. When you express an issue with someone, they have this sophisticated way of turning it around. I do believe those people exist. But I don't want to go into that too deep because I'm not an expert on narcissism and I'm only here to say about love bombing. Look it, because I've done it. I'm here to say it's kind of male behavior to do that, when we are driven by lust or limerence. But self-centric people, I think today we are byproduct, especially when after we're 40. If we've gone through a divorce, and roughly about 75% of people who are over 40 are divorced. That's anecdotal on my part. I do believe that for men and women alike, there becomes this desire to especially if you're seeking to mate with someone another. What I mean to say is you're seeking a fully committed relationship with one another. I do believe that we can be selfish because we've been hurt. That's right. We can be selfish because we've been hurt. And what I mean by say is self-protecting oneself, and in that being more discriminatory and being more about making sure I don't make the same mistake, making sure that being self-protective. And I think that can bleed into being self-centric instead of actually operating from a place of self-love. And by the way, if you're not familiar, there's my book, What the Heck is Self-Love Anyway? A Journey of Personal Development, Self-Help, and Spiritual Work. By the way, all the books I recommend is the link below. But I want to share this book, If the Buddha Dated, because what I like about this book, and why do I recommend books? It's to encourage knowledge, to encourage individual growth. And why I like this book is it throws out the traditional gender rhetoric of how dating should be and operates from a place of how can we come from a heart-centered, compassionate way to date one another instead of the traditional self-centric way human beings are dating today. And listen, I get it. It's tough out there. It's hard to find all those pieces of the puzzle, especially when we're in a sea of dysfunctionality. And I really want to thank, and I apologize right now, your name escapes me, who created this chart for me. But I have a brand new chart. This is something I came up with a while ago. I call it the 3 types of people actively dating. I call the first batch the users. These are the seek short-term gain, the love bombers, the players, the gold diggers, the entitled people, selfish people only caring about their needs. I roughly believe that's 20% of the population. Now, in the next category, I call these the spenders. The reason why I call these spenders, they're spending time with you, and yet they don't necessarily desire full commitment, or they're not capable of full commitment. These seek connection, companionship, coupling, or sex, no direction, uncertainty, fearful, usually have a dysfunctional life. These are people that will spend time with you, and I call these the spenders. And then that's roughly 60%. And then the balance is what I call the growers or the builders. They seek long-term commitment. They are emotionally grown up with good relationship skills. They have their act together. Okay, so let me just show that to you right there. One of the reasons why I became a dating and relationship coach is that I intentionally help women become more intentional about the process, particularly in the area of learning how to vet if he's a user, spender, and grower. By the way, there's a link right here to schedule a discovery call with me to see if working with a coach is right for you. Because when you learn how to ask the questions based on your personality, learn how to ask the right questions, you have a greater chance of vetting, is this a user, a spender, or a grower? And given that I'm saying that 8 out of 10 guys or 4 out of 5 guys you meet are probably either users or spenders, it requires a more sophisticated approach or a more intentional approach to understanding, is this person worth spending my time with? Because the vast majority of human beings are either, have clinical issues or are rather dysfunctional. And since our current dating marketplace is hyper-focused on chemistry and attraction and not enough about shared values, blendable lifestyles, or emotional maturity, this is what I talk about in my relationship iceberg, okay? You can see above the waterline is chemistry. Below the waterline is shared values, blendable lifestyles. And what I help you is in that emotional maturity. Is this person a grown-up enough to be in relationship? That's where I can help you out. So before I jump into Q&A, as far as self-centric people, this is true for men and women alike. It's a natural thing to be what I call myopic. You can look it up, and meaning only looking at the world through your own lens. Okay. It's very common for that to happen. It's a natural thing. And yet when you meet someone special, when you meet someone who just seems different from everyone else, what happens is that myopic view starts to open up. And I can only speak for myself. There's my sweetheart right now. She's out of town right now. And I'm genuinely missing her, and it's because I appreciate her. What I found is when you meet somebody, when a man or woman meets a person that genuinely shares their values, their lifestyles are blendable, they have good relationship skills, they have good emotional maturity, and there's physical attraction, all of a sudden that desire to be it all about oneself shifts. And I think it happens when a person, I think for a man, and I can only speak for myself in this particular case, what opened the door for me, what I believe to attract in my beautiful partner, is I had to get to a place of saying, I want to take care of someone. I want to take care of someone. That is beyond self-centric. That's it being more closer to unconditional. And I think the problem with people over 40 in particular, if they've got burned in their past relationship or their marriage, oftentimes for a period of time, it could be a long period of time, they operate from a self-centric place and they act as spenders. As I shared before, those are people that want companionship, connection, and sex, but they're not capable of commitment. And until a man literally can say, I want to take care of someone, and it doesn't mean you have to take care of them fully financially or whatnot, but at least that want to take care of someone, it's going to be difficult for them to go beyond the surface level of what I say companionship, connection, and sex. Okay. You have to want genuine commitment. And until you, because ladies, you're the gatekeepers of sex, and that happens now, really quickly. But the gatekeepers of commitment is men. But he has to want commitment, and that goes beyond being self-centric. Because until a person reaches that point of saying, I want to take care of someone, or at least want it, doesn't mean they have to do it, but want to do it, it's going to be difficult to lean into the deeper roots of trust. The deeper roots of trust. And trust isn't just about fidelity. Trust is, can I count on that person being there for me? Does this person have my best interest at heart? That's what trust is. Does this person care about my feelings as much as I care about my own feelings? Would they want to take care of me? And many of you are in relationships, or you're in fantasy relationships, believing that that person does want that. Because when a man says, I want a relationship, that you have to define, does that mean the same thing as you want? Just because they say, what does the word relationship mean? It can mean situationship. It can be friends with benefits. It can be casual. There's probably 100 other terms going on these days. But until it's designed to be partnership, and that's what I promote, is partnership. And partnership means I can count on you. Because when you say the words, I love you, this is how I believe how it should land. I'm here. You matter. We are important. I've got your back. And I only want you. That's how it should land. And until a person can be in that space of saying, I want to take care of you, be careful of getting attached to the words, I love you. And certainly don't assume that just because you might be operating that way, that other person might be operating in the same premise. And this is why I help women get clarity on that, because with clarity, it builds confidence, and confidence helps making better choices. And that's my invitation for y'all, is to make better choices. Y'all, am I Southern? All right. I think you get the gist of where I'm going. Did this sink in? Did this resonate? Please let me know. Please hit that like button. Please share this video. Please subscribe to my channel. You're brand new. Check out the links below to my books, my membership group. Follow me on Instagram and that sort of thing.